part of the vDefend firewall, formerly known as the NSX firewall team. Been with VMware for 10 years, doing various aspects of design on networking and security. So let's go through the presentation. So let me introduce the stack first. We all know that north-south perimeter security is not enough anymore. If we are running workloads in the data center, we need to think about east-west security to prevent lateral attack propagation through the systems. So that is where the vDefend firewall stack comes into picture. We provide multi-layered lateral security defense. So our firewall stack works on virtual machines, containers, as well as bare metal service. So we have the distributed firewall stack. The distributed firewall is instantiated in the hypervisor at the vNIC, and it gives you east-west security. So you can implement macro segmentation. You can also go further and do zero trust micro-segmentation policies. Then we have the gateway firewall. The gateway firewall is a north-south firewall. It does have a lot of perimeter firewall functionality. Usually, if you want to do some zoning for your virtual as well as physical workloads, or you are a service providers, you want to separate line of businesses, that's where you can use the gateway firewall. On top of the distributed firewall and the gateway firewall, we have our ATP suite. These are our advanced security features for ransomware defense. So we have IDS, IPS available. So we have both distributed intrusion detection and prevention, as well as at the gateway. If you want to use our stack for malware detection, we also have a malware detection and prevention available. We have a cloud-based sandboxing solution. So if some malware, suspicious malware is detected in your VCF infrastructure, we can send the file for further inspection into a sandbox. So for detonation, that is possible. For different anomalies, different IDS, IPS events, malware events, we can correlate all of them in a campaign using our network detection and response system. So what this does is it gives you a nice campaign which is triaged, which your SOC team can use for threat investigation. So that is available as well. Last but not the least, we have our security intelligence suite, which basically gives you full east-west visibility into your data center. So you can do flow visibility, app discovery, app mapping. You can do things like firewall rule recommendations, use it for firewall planning. We also have what we call a network traffic analysis tool. So it establishes, you run it for a while, and it establishes a baseline in your infrastructure. And if there's any deviation from baseline, we will alert you and send an alert to our system. So this is a stack. And yes, it can be very overwhelming if you try to do all of the things at once. So I'm going to walk you through how to achieve zero trust in a step-by-step journey. So let's start with the distributed firewall. That's the easiest way to get started with the stack. So what are the product capabilities? You have layer 4 access controls. We also have layer 7 controls like app IDs and FQDN. So there's a list of 750 application IDs. So instead of writing a rule based on a port or a protocol, you can write a rule which says, do not allow any communication to my database server over a particular. So let's say you want to disable TLS v1. You can say, do not allow any communication on TLS v1, allow it on TLS v2. Or you can write a rule which says, do not allow communication on SSH v1, but allow it on v2. Those kind of rules can be written. Then we have the identity firewall, very popular in the VDI use cases, where we could do Microsoft AD-based rules. So you can write something which says, hey, allow Alice to access the HR system, but do not allow Bob to access the HR system. So those kind of rules can be written. We also have RDSH-based rules you can write. And again, these features are supported on VCF infrastructure. They work on containers, as well as they work on bare metal workloads. So what are the unique advantages? If you have a VCF stack, you don't have to install any firewall software. You already have NSX installed in the stack. So you can just go and start writing rules. So it's plug and play with the VCF private cloud, again, managed from a single unified console. So if you have NSX Manager, You just use NSX Manager to manage all your security. Again, no agents, no tabs, no sensors installed anywhere. The distributed firewall is enforced at each virtual network interface in the hypervisor. And guess what? As your applications scale, you are going to buy more ESX hosts to run your applications. You don't have to buy a separate firewall. As the host and cluster scale, the firewall is automatically scaling. So it's an elastic scale. There's no specialized hardware to buy. And if you vMotion the virtual machine, the security policy moves along with it. The state is also maintained. So these are some of the architectural advantages you get with the vDefend distributed firewall. So how do we write policy? At a very, very high level, the way you write policy is first you do your grouping, you create security groups, and then you tag them. So we can express our rules based on groups, and the group membership can be based on tags. So we can start very simple. You can say, do not allow green to talk to blue, but allow green to talk to purple. And then who's green? You can define the green group to have certain members, and you can define the purple and the blue groups to have certain members. Then you go and apply these tags to the VMs. These are NSX tags, by the way, and the rules are automatically enforced. So what you can do is you can go and define your rules first based on groups, and then you can define a group membership criteria. So when ARIA automation creates a virtual machine or Terraform creates a virtual machine, as long as you tag the virtual machine properly, it will land in the right security group and policy will be enforced. If the virtual machine is deleted, you don't have to go and clean up any firewall table or rules. They're automatically gone because the virtual machine is gone. If the virtual machine is replicated using SRM to another site, no need to worry. The firewall rules are replicated to the secondary site as well, as long as the virtual machine was tagged properly, right? So that's the overall high-level idea on how this works. Now, how do you start? So we've been doing this for a while, so this is what we advise customers to do. We want you to have a quick win. Yes, you may want to microsegment 500 applications, but it's going to take you a long, long time to do that. So we want you to start small. My recommendation is first you go ahead and secure your infrastructure. So come up with a grouping and a tagging strategy for your infrastructure, and then we are going to write some rules to protect your critical infrastructure services. Once you tackle this, we can do some environmental separation. So we can go and define environmental segmentation policies, like do not allow dev to talk to prod, for example, or UAT to test kind of policies. Or if you want to separate line of businesses, you can say, I don't allow line of business 1 to talk to line of business 2 kind of policies. This zoning, we'll do it with the distributed firewall. You can also do it with the gateway firewall if you want to. So it's an option. After you get these 2 quick wins, you're in a pretty good shape. You have good environmental segmentation, and your critical infrastructure like AD, Telnet, DNS, access to those is protected. Now you can go and start tackling your applications. You may have a few thousand applications in your data center. So what I recommend folks is pick a few, the critical ones, and start doing application mapping. So for application mapping, there are multiple tools you can use. The NSX suite comes with security intelligence, which is NSX intelligence, which you can use for application mapping or flow visibility. You can also use vRealize Network Insight or vRealize Log Insight. So whatever tool you pick, you begin using them, you do the grouping. If you use security intelligence, we will come up with the recommendations as well. And then you ring fence your apps. After you ring fence your apps, the next step is you can go and within the app and do more zero trust intra-app kind of microsegmentation. And this is a journey. You'll have new apps coming on board, so you can figure out what is important. If you want to microsegment all of them, go for it. If you want to microsegment only your PCI apps, go for it, right? So once you have done this, you are in really, really good shape. But what about the next level of ransomware defense? So we have IDS IPS capabilities, which you can enable on your mission critical workloads. You can enable it on a cluster. You can enable it for certain workloads. You have the malware and sandboxing controls. And then you have the NTA and NDR controls, which you can enable. So this is a journey usually which most customers take. Some customers actually start from visibility as well. So if you are a SOC customer, you may not want to segment, and you may just want visibility. And you may just turn on the last box first. But this is the typical journey we see with the VCF customers. OK? This is a quick overview of all the grouping criteria we can have. We talked about groups. So we can have static groups based on static criteria, or we can have dynamic groups which are based on tags. So you can have groups based on segments. You can have groups based on operating systems. You can have AD-based groups as well. So different grouping criteria are available. And the most popular one is grouping by tags, because that gives you the flexibility to do dynamic grouping. So you can pick and choose what you like and start your journey. OK, now let's quickly walk through a brownfield data center and see how we go ahead and do this. This is your data center. There's a bunch of apps, and there's a bunch of shared services which everybody needs access to. So the first thing we are going to do is we are going to group our apps. We're going to do coarse grouping first. We're going to group all the apps in prod. We're going to group all apps in dev, and then we're going to have a common services group. You can go more granular and create an AD group, a patch group, a DNS group, etc. Right? So the first step is grouping and tagging. Once you do your grouping and tagging, as prod grows, as dev grows, as long as you tag the apps properly, they will land in the proper group using the dynamic criteria. So security groups are defined, your tags are defined, and now let's start writing the rules. So the first rules we will write is we want to allow access to infrastructure services. So you can have a whitelist model, or you can have a blacklist model. What we recommend is you do a default allow rule in the beginning, keep it on for logging, and then you can start allowing certain apps, and at the end you go and flip the rule back to deny. So we're going to write the secure infrastructure rules first. So very simple examples of rules: AD to AD allow, RFC 1918, you don't want external actors getting into your system, so you can do RFC 1918, or if you know your networks, you can say allow access to AD, allow access to NTP. And the other thing you can very quickly do is the block the insecure protocols. So you can basically block access to SSH v1, block access to SMB v1. If you want to block access to Telnet, you can do that. You can write a rule which says only allow jump hosts to SSH into certain mission critical infrastructure. So those kind of rules can be written. Once you do this, we are going to go and do some environment-based rules. A very simple, quick win is do not allow prod to talk to dev, right? But allow prod to talk to common services, allow dev to talk to common services. So that's a quick win. Now, at this stage, you can go and enable security intelligence if you like. What security intelligence will do is it will give you flow visibility and will give you a chance to validate your application mapping. So you know that your prod boundary is perfect, your dev boundary is perfect. You have not, you've not messed up something and grouped something which was not supposed to group the way it was supposed to work, right? So great time to turn on security intelligence. And security intelligence can also give you rule recommendations. Colors will change. Whatever is segmented, it will flag it's segmented properly. Whatever is non-segmented will be flagged as well. Now we have environmental separation. So the next step is we are going to do secure our app-to-app communication. For example, we can allow app 1 to talk to app 3 over port 80, but we're not allowing app 1 to talk to app 2 on port 1433. So these kinds of rules can be written. If you have certain critical databases you don't want certain apps to access, those can be written as well. And again, this is a journey. You can turn on NSX intelligence, and it will give you flow recommendations as well. Now we go and do the actual micro-segmentation within the apps. So you can, now the grouping is done. At this point, you can go and your app grouping is also done. So you can just go and zero in into security intelligence and look at the communication paths for app 1. And within the app, then you can go and write rules which allow the web not to talk to DB, allow app to talk to DB. So that's the next stage you can kind of get into. So once the microsegmentation is done, we talked about going one level further and elevating the SOC controls and the ransomware defense. Again, you can choose to turn on IDS, IPS on a cluster or a set of apps. If you have Windows virtual machines, you can have the malware SVM running. So we will do some malware detection and prevention, and then we'll detect anomalies. And then we can send all this data to a third-party SIEM like Splunk or ARIA, and your SOC team can use this additional data for triaging. And again, there's no TAP, nothing new to be installed here except the NAP platform for security intelligence. Okay. One slide on the security model. This is just a reference slide. These are the different predefined categories we have. So when you write your rules, you can put them in these categories. For example, you can put your all your communication to the infrastructure kind of rule in the infrastructure category, your application rules in the application category, and the rules are always enforced top to bottom, left to right. Okay. Another very important design consideration is applied to. You don't want to apply rules where on virtual machines where you don't need to apply the rule. So we suggest you do applied to. That will limit the scope of enforcement for the rule, and it will optimize the resource utilization for your hypervisor. So you don't have a few 100,000 rules on each hypervisor. You only have what you need, right? So that was all I had. Hopefully it was useful. Just to recap, you can use the vDefend firewall to segment zones, segment your applications in your VCF infrastructure in both your management as well as your VI workload domain. You can enable IDS, IPS, and malware controls if you want additional lateral security defense. Security intelligence will provide you deep flow analytics and firewall rule recommendations, which you can hit the publish button and import in your firewall rule table. And last but not the least, we have the NTA and the NDR functionality to elevate your ransomware defense. Okay, thank you. If you have any questions, we have these tags for the t-shirts. Please stop by and happy to answer them.